Delicious.
Since my last video showed a few tips and tricks about the effectiveness of peeking, it felt fitting to do a follow-up video on cover and how best to keep yourself protected while playing. Whether it's buildings, rocks, or trees, it's always good practice to keep yourself concealed at all times and not out in the open where you can easily be shot. Making sure you're protecting yourself is crucial to your survival and just another reason why you suck at PUBG. This comes as a surprise to no one that having good cover will almost always be the deciding factor in who wins games and gunfights. I would bet that 95% of the time, the person with cover is going to win a fight against someone without it. It's for this reason that you should always prioritize your movement between two objects as much as you can. Avoiding open fields not only protects you, but also helps ensure how little you are spotted by enemies. Regardless if you play a more passive or aggressive playstyle, concealment should be a major focus while playing PUBG. There are a few things to keep in mind when deciding what to take cover behind. The first question you need to ask yourself is, even though I'm behind cover, where else am I exposed? Meaning, by standing in this spot, could I potentially be seen by other players in different positions? This question doesn't just apply to single object cover, but also cover within buildings. Especially if said building has several windows or multiple points of entry, it's certainly something you'll want to be thinking about when you're peeking out or looking out for information. The next thing to consider is, does this cover allow me ways to escape it quickly and easily should I have to? One mistake a lot of players make is holding themselves up in buildings that only have one way in or out of them. You never want to do this if you can help it because it means that you can easily be killed by, say, a Molotov or a grenade. In a case where you do manage to get out of the room, all the other player has to do is sit back and wait since you're now bottlenecked into a single entry and can easily be taken out. By applying the same logic to things other than buildings, being able to get out of cover safely, should the situation call for it, is equally as important. In cases where you get pinned down behind, say, a tree or a rock, you're going to want to try and gather as much information as possible. Information such as where you're being shot from and where you can go to avoid being seen or shot. Using the quick peek method from the last video, as well as listening for the direction of gunfire, are going to be your best tools in gathering this information. Once you know where the other player is, you can begin to assume his line of sight and how best to avoid it. Line of sight is a huge factor in games where the primary mechanic is spotting and shooting enemies. How far you are from someone will help to inform your decision on how to respond and avoid being killed. This sort of thing can be more easily illustrated as a cone of vision. When you're close to someone, their cone of vision is much more narrow than if you were to be further away from them. If you find the engagement to be less advantageous for you, then finding the best way to escape your enemy's cone of vision should be your main objective. The easiest way to do this is by running away from them in a straight line, keeping both his and your points of cover between the two of you while you make your escape. If this isn't an option, then it's a good opportunity to put some of those handy smoke grenades to use. Assuming, of course, that you've saved a few up to this point. Smoke grenades are great for concealing your movement, but as a tip, can also be used as a tool for misdirection. That is, to throw them in one direction to distract your enemy while you run in the opposite direction. The last things I wanted to, cover about cover is how you should be using it during gunfights. Simply using the previously discussed peeking techniques may not be enough to ensure who wins and who dies. There are a few things you need to know and avoid when shooting from behind cover. Number 1. Limiting your exposure and focusing on a narrower window of vision. What I mean by this is only peeking through or around your cover just enough to see and shoot your target. This might seem obvious, but more often than not, players expose way more of themselves trying to shoot around cover than they need to. Realizing this will certainly help you win more gunfights. Number 2. The closer you are to cover, the more difficult limiting your exposure becomes. PUBG has a lot of great shooting mechanics, but some that can get you killed if you aren't aware of them. One being that when you're right up next to a wall or an object, your character model has limitations that force your gun into an unusable position. When this happens, your options for being able to shoot your gun properly are to lean out around cover and almost fully expose yourself, or by taking a couple of steps back and then peeking around. Doing the latter ensures you're able to shoot your gun, but also provides better cover since you're exposing less of yourself to do so. Lastly, if you're going to use shorter cover like windows, half walls, or small rocks, then you'll want to be aware that your character has two different heights while crouched. a walking height, and a resting height. When at rest, your character's model actually sits lower than if you were moving or walking. Even something as small as strafing or shifting back and forth in one spot can be enough to expose you in the slightest of ways and potentially seen by other players. Although this can also be used as a tool for gaining information if used properly. I know not every position on the map is going to provide cover, but if given the opportunity, finding something to hide behind should always be a priority. Even natural cover like hills or subtle changes in the topography can and should be utilized. Picking paths on the map that limit your chances of being seen, such as running on one side of a hill or finding a valley to move through, also helps to cut down on that, which can be nice because it gives you one less place you have to worry about watching while running between your next place of cover.